Well, hey everybody. And here's me working away and completely lost track of the time. It's one of those days. So yes, had a great question yesterday. Deb actually commented. If you guys see yesterday's video, you guys will see that Deb commented. So what happens when you lose those little buds? And I was just like, well, kind of thinking to myself, half joking, it's like, well, the sound keeps on going, but it's not in your ear. But no, all joking aside, this is a great question. What happens when you lose your, especially with the wireless ones, what happens when you lose the buds? So most of the time with most brands, you lose them, and that's it. The more expensive brands, especially the Apple AirPods more particularly, have this really, really cool feature in them. And not the least of which is that feature allows you to find your AirPods. Now, they are very, very small, and they don't have the ability to have a full-on GPS transmitter in there because that would just be excessive and would raise the cost a significant amount. So here's something neat, and it's a great example of something that you may hear about, you may never hear about. And I didn't really intend to cover this topic, but I will, just because it's kind of neat. It can find them through a process called distributed network. And the way distributed network works is most internet connections or most websites you go to have one server that has the website. So everything, all roads lead to Rome, right? So everything goes to the one place. With a distributed network, it doesn't. The network is not centrally hosted, but hosted between dozens and dozens and dozens of users. Where does this fit in with the AirPods? Well, here's how it goes. My AirPods are connected to my phone, and let's say I lose one or both. They are still Bluetooth devices. So what happens is when I leave, the chances that somebody has an iPhone that are nearby or that will come nearby is pretty good. iPhones represent a significant portion of the total cell phone marketplace. So what happens is if somebody else's phone catches wind of my AirPod because it is charged enough or what have you, it will tell the phone, hey, I'm Richard's AirPod. That phone will give no message. It will not show that it is doing this. This is all happening in the background. But it will transmit to Apple that this AirPod that is currently being sought after, you have to go to the Find My app. I'll talk about that in a second. You have to go to the Find My app, and that is Find My Phone, Find My iPod, Find My iPad, Find My Mac. They're all the same app. And then what happens is you say, well, I need to find this. So it puts out like an APB. And then if any of these headphones show up and your phone detects somebody else's, it will send a message back that goes, this is the location, of course location services have to be on, this is the location that these headphones were last pinged at or last connected to or last noticed. Not connected to, because they're not paired, they're just connected. So, hey, we noticed that this AirPod is here, or these AirPods are here. And then it sends a message back to your account, where it will say, your AirPods have been found here. This can happen several times, because every iPhone that comes near them initiates this, hey, they've moved here, they've moved here, they've moved there. So it's kind of neat. If you lose them down a sewer, you're buying a new one. That's pretty much how it goes. Apple has better after-sales service, so they do have certain provisions for that in the Apple Care. Please do note you have to have Apple Care for that, and it's not expensive on the headphones. It's well worth it. So there is that. Other manufacturers might have something similar depending on how good they are, how fair they are. The other thing, so distributed networks kind of work like this. It's not one central, but the community as a whole allows for more resource. This is actually the case with the Genome Project, which is really neat. The Genome Project, they can't afford all the computing power to buy these huge servers and just create these massive server farms to do all the calculations. So what they do is they look for volunteers like you or me who have computers that remain on, but that are not always in use. And what they do is they ask you, hey, do you want to help us build the Genome Project? And you go, sure. And you install this little app. And what that does is it allows your computer and your internet connection. You are basically saying only these people may use the computer I'm not using when your computer is otherwise indisposed, like when it's not doing anything. It will churn up and do some calculations. Well, okay, so that's one computer. But think of it this way. If you have something major to calculate, and you have one person doing it, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. But if you get 10,000 people working on it, that cuts the time down by a lot. You got 1 million people or 10 million people, and that's more the case with the Genome Project. You have about, 10 million or so, and they're only devoting the extra compute cycles, but that's 10 million people doing that job, or computers doing that job. So they don't have to invest so much into the infrastructure and one set. And then when they figure things out, well, that benefits all of humanity. So I'm really for this kind of distributed network and this kind of idea. I think it's really, really great. Is there potential for abuse? Yes, but not as much as you'd think. It's a lot harder for these distributed networks to be misused because the use is so specific. So it's kind of really interesting to get into that and understand it and know how that works. Other examples, the famous LimeWire or LimeWire, the early days of music piracy and whatnot. It wasn't going to a central server. It was if you have certain songs or torrents or one way of copying large blocks, instead of having to host them centrally and everybody's going to the same place, it's like everybody going to the library and wanting to take out the same book. Well, there's going to be some fighting over the book. Well, instead what happens is you start with one person, but then 10 people download that. Now you've got 11 copies. Now you've got 11 people who can source that and add to that chain. So now you can get it from 10 different people and you get little bits from each person. And then of course you get 1,000 people who have it. So it gets much quicker to download and so on. So distributed networks can be really, really good. They can also, of course, be a little bit abused because they were for piracy for quite a long time. So it's just kind of interesting to know, and how the AirPods use that is really cool. So I'm going to leave it at that for today. I've got a whole bunch of topics lined up, and this is our 40th show. Would you believe this? This is where we're 40% done. We're 40 out of 100. So guys, thank you all 4 of you for tuning in. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Now I got to start publicizing this thing a little more heavily because I think we've got the format down and we know where we're going with this. Go ahead, hit me with your questions and comments. The email's been up the whole show. Let me know what you think. Let me know how you feel. And I look forward to hearing from you and keeping the conversation going. And absolutely, if you have any questions about sound or any of that, we'll get more into that as we go. All right. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you tomorrow at 6:45.